Good afternoon. It's Sunday, June 9th, 2024 at around 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're joining me for our fourth letter of Dear Holmes, the Bewildered Blacksmith, a subscription service where you get a new letter each week, but really it's not each week. They're having trouble keeping up. But we're playing an old case from 2021 that was sent in by a viewer. This will be our fourth and final letter giving us clues. Then next week we'll get a solution from Holmes. We're going to get into the game in a minute. A little bit of bookkeeping first. On Thursday, we played a new cold case game by a French company called Platonia Games. Their only case translated into English, and it was very good. We had a very good time playing it. Maybe on the medium to easy side, perhaps. So easier than the hardest of the games, but some very clever stuff in there, and I would recommend it. Okay, what other bookkeeping? Let me check in with the chat, make sure everything's going okay here. See, we've got our normal group. YouTube says 8 concurrent viewers, so we've got a small group today. Marco is here. Marco wrote up some notes for us in the Discord that maybe we'll take a look at before we start. What else should we talk about? I do want to remind you as we get closer to Gen Con, which is first week of August, that I will be at Gen Con, board gaming convention in Indianapolis. If you're planning on being at Gen Con, I'd love to say hello. I do have some little espresso mugs from the channel that I'd be happy to bring as a gift. And I am also going to be bringing High and Low, the game behind me here, the Detective New York City Noir game I've been working on. And I'm happy to set up a session for people to play it. It's going to take several hours, so you'd really have to want to do that as a main thing. But let me know. And if you're interested in writing cases for High and Low, there have been some developments on that front, some software tools to make that easier. And I'd love to have more people involved in that. You can find a Board Game Geek page for High and Low where we're talking about that stuff. I'm particularly interested in ideas for mail-based games set in the world of High and Low. And if you're interested in writing a case like that or talking about game mechanics issues, stop by and chat with me. What else? If you haven't watched my review of The Seventh Citadel, you might want to check that out. There's a new Kickstarter ongoing for another couple weeks. And I quite liked the game. All right, so the Bewildered Blacksmith. In our last letter, we've got this kid who showed up at this blacksmith's house, dirty, disheveled, no shoes. In the last letter, we got some things started to click into place. We went into the town where the florist has been seen with a little girl that she claims is her sister's, but we know it's not. And it turns out the florist is right next to the carpenter who's been ordering crazy amounts of nails from our blacksmith. They're like adjoining properties. Very suspicious. And we get a couple more details about the florist and the carpenter. One thing we learn is that the carpenter has a side business of running a morgue, picking up dead bodies in his hearse. And he's got an outfit that looks very much like the outfit that the kid who was living with the blacksmith was super scared of. So we think, okay, this kid was captured by this carpenter blacksmith guy. And we also get a peek into the blacksmith's property, not the blacksmith property, the carpenter's property. And we get a little bit of clues that maybe the chat was right about him having a mine. That was one of our main theories, is that the carpenter is digging out a mine using the kids for mining work, illegal mining work, although child labor, you would think he could just be out in the open about it in the early 19th century, late 19th century. So there's his funeral director business that scared the kid. But then there's also this clue about how when Watson visits, he hears this knocking, muffled knocking. Says the sounds were strangely muffled, seemed to be coming from deep inside the building. Our theory is it's deep inside a mine. I really think this is our strongest clue that really is a mining operation here. Then he goes to the florist. We learned some more stuff about the florist. First of all, she's doing a good business, selling flowers from London. And there's a weird smell. She's got clear blue eyes. There's an unpleasant odor. We're not sure what that is, but we also learned that there used to be a drug pharmacy, compound pharmacy. They would manufacture drugs down in her basement. Kind of a weird clue. We don't see the little kid. She says she doesn't have any kids. She's doing it all alone. We hear that she and the carpenter are getting close, that there's a talk of a romantic thing, but also maybe business operation. We're also told, and they rented they're using the same property. I think it's a mine that they've agreed to dig out, and they don't want to let anyone know for whatever reason. And then we get some big clues about this delivery of crates. So we know she's bringing in flowers from London that are fancy flowers. That's people are coming from all over to get them. She's got a brother in London who apparently is in touch with, has access to flowers and gardens. But then we hear this thing about the crates. He provides the wooden crates for her flower deliveries. Takes the empty crates to the railway station with an envelope containing her order. And then the crates go back to London, and then they come back the next day. Then our carpenter picks them up, we're told, in his heavy cart with these strong horses to carry these flowers. And we're told that Watson takes a peek at the crates and he sees some have the brother's address. Let's see. Weekly trips, he wants to go look. Okay, he sees the cart and it's got a big strong horse pulling it. Dozen or more wooden packing crates, some with holes drilled in the sides. Some with holes drilled in the sides. Could be to give the flowers air, but we think now it's to transport kids. And that's why they need the strong horse, because for flowers you wouldn't need a strong horse at all. You would, but if it's packed with little kids, you would. All right, and there's the black horse. So our theory then, and we were talking about, there was some talk about the florist befriending the grieving mothers. What does that mean? Is she taking kids? But I think our best theory now is that it'd be hard to get kids. People would notice if kids were going missing from this town, but from London, not so much. So I think our working theory is something like orphaned kids are being taken from London, maybe in some orphanage, drugged up, and then shipped here, maybe among other places, and then they're being used in the mine. So that maybe the florist brother is running a child selling service where you can buy these orphaned kids, put them to work, and then, you know, maybe they die off, no big deal. Maybe the forest is running a side business of talking to grieving mothers, saying, hey, I can get you a new kid for cheap. And that the transportation of the drugged kids from London to this town, Loddon, is what explains our kid that's arrived barefoot and disheveled. He's either escaped from the mine or he has escaped in transport. And then this is also our explanation for the steel nails, that they're the nails that are being used constantly in boxes, that you're building these wooden boxes and then you're tearing them apart, then you need new nails for them again. It still seems like a little extravagant. But then our other theory is that you're using the nails to build scaffolding for the mine. And maybe what's happening is you're constantly, well, I don't know, I guess, but so we've got some overlapping theories. Let's see. Rob says it could be that they're transporting kids to London instead of vice versa, although it seems more probable that they're importing instead of exporting. I think that's right. DJ Moneycut says, my current theory is that it's not a mine, but a tunnel connecting two properties. Interesting. That's an interesting theory. There's no bank robbery, big bank in the neighborhood that we know of. We don't know if crates are going anywhere else. There was some discussion in Marco's hints about the crates. Let's see. They're going every week, returning with flowers. I mean, they are coming back with flowers. We think the druggist chemist downstairs, maybe she's making up stuff to knock out the kids for the transport. And that's why our kid, in the first episode, first letter, this kid escapes and he's super sleepy and groggy. So we think that matches with the idea that he's been drugged on the trip. Marco was saying in his notes that him escaping from the cart matches the spatial locale. Where is that comment here? Somewhere Marco is pointing out that we're told that the house, the blacksmith house, is between Loddon and London, so it makes sense that he escaped on the route. There's also a comment here about the tracks. So we're told that one of the clues that the blacksmith has is that there's a very strange, narrow cart track that took the kid away and then came back with a warning note. It's not going to match this big, heavy cart carrying the kids, but I think what it would match is a little florist's cart, and we talked about that a little bit. Marco says that his comment about the distance is here. Let's see. The London flower business involved the carpenter's crates. The trip is London to Geldeston by train and Geldeston to Loddon by cart. Seems to suggest that Edward escaped from such a cart because Shedgrave is northward Loddon, where Geldeston is southward. Okay, is there anything I haven't covered in our recap before we open the next letter here? Next week will be our solution, and then the week after that I'll do a game design update. If you're a user of OBS, if you have a YouTube channel and use OBS to live stream or record, I did write a new plugin recently that I'm going to be posting this week. I want to keep your eye open for that. I'll put a video out about it. That always causes lots of unsubscriptions. Okay, if there's nothing I've missed, let's get into our next letter here. All right. So we're on 17th of October. All of this stuff is happening within a week or so, and we're hearing from Frederick Tricker. Friday, 17 October, 1890. Dear Holmes, it's been a very successful day, although anything approaching a coherent explanation or solution continues to evade me. Hoddy and Hamer are obviously collaborating to some extent, but I can't reasonably explain their secrecy. I spent more time with Mr. and Mrs. Goulding first thing this morning and gave them an outline of my investigations thus far. I then walked back into Loudon and followed up on two of the other leads you asked me to consider. Regarding the auburn-haired girl, there are 3 schools and 1 workhouse in Loudon and Chedgrave area, and I visited each. During the past year, none have taken in any auburn-haired girls of the age suggested by Mrs. Roper, and there were no pupils or residents registered under the name Hamer. Furthermore, none of the shopkeepers and business owners on the high street know of any child that lodged with Miss Hamer. The waitress at the Swan, who has proved to be a fount of local knowledge, confirmed this and scoffed at the idea of the florist becoming a stepmother. Regarding local funerals, I turned my attention to the local clergy, starting with the Vicar of the Holy Trinity in Loudon. Once again, I had to pretend that I was making inquiries about a possible funeral. I have to say, I felt distinctly uncomfortable lying to a man of the cloth, but I could think of no other way. In the course of the conversation, I asked about the number of funerals that had taken place at the church in the last year. The answer was 1, with the aid of a hired trap. I then visited a further 8 parish churches and met with the same response, namely that there has been no significant rise or indeed fall in the numbers of people passing away in the vicinity. I think it's fair to conclude that there has been no increased demand for James Hoddy's coffins. This was the theory about why he was ordering so many nails from the blacksmith is for coffins, he said, but it's clearly not true. It was late in the afternoon when I returned to the hotel to find your telegram waiting for me. Though I was a little surprised to learn that you wished me to act so swiftly, I did as you suggested and went straight to the police station. There I located a ruddy-faced P.C. Melrose, who was overjoyed to learn that Mr. Sherlock Holmes required his assistance. He agreed to accompany me to Hoddy's yard and the florist shop, together with P.C. Cleary, another constable from the station. I explained that a thorough search of both properties was required. I want to make sure we're not on the last letter. It seems like if they send the police in there, they might solve our case here. Okay. No. Okay. Search of both properties was required for the pursuit of information relating to the disappearance of at least 2 missing children and some potential stolen property. Not sure what stolen property they're talking about other than the kid. Interestingly, when I mentioned the sighting of the auburn-haired girl, Melrose became quite animated. He explained that the day before he had gone to see his sister who lives in Stockton, less than 10 miles from Loudon. While there, she told him about a local couple who had lost their daughter to cholera some 6 months ago, but who now had another child living with them, a girl with auburn hair, in fact. Melrose hadn't given it too much thought at the time, explaining that his sister was something of a gossip, but now wondered if this might have been the girl previously seen with Miss Hamer. This confirms our theories about the florist doing a side business of illegal adoptions. We set off from the police station not long after this. At my request, PC Cleary was tasked with knocking at the door to Miss Hamer's shop on the High Street, while Melrose and I made our way to the George Street entrance of Hottie's yard. The woodshed storage buildings in the yard looked to have been used to construct wooden boxes and crates, rather than coffins. In fact, across the whole of the site, we found only 4 completed coffins, whereas the number of crates numbered close to 70. All but a handful had delivery labels attached to them with the same Shoreditch address I had seen on 2 crates the previous evening. Okay, they're all going to the same place. That's okay. In Hottie's coach house and stable block, I was able to examine the wheels of both the trade cart and the black hearse. The wheels of the cart were a good 6 inches wide, whereas those of the hearse were nearly a third of this. So the hearse may match the tracks on the Blacksmith property. When I mentioned to you in my earlier letter that I believe Miss Hamer to be something of a perfectionist, I could not have been more accurate. One section of the coach house had been set aside for the incoming crates, which Hottie had evidently picked up from the Geldeston railway station only a short time prior to our arrival. These had been carefully sorted into 2 distinct piles, with those containing Miss Hamer's flowers stacked to the left, while the heavier of the boxes sat unopened to our right. The latter all had delivery labels addressed to James Hottie, carpenter, George Street, Loudon. Hottie, unaware that we had been quietly searching the outbuildings for some minutes, was preparing a pot of tea on a small log burner when we finally arrived. He was clearly shaken to see PC Melrose's bulky figure pass through the door behind me. While he refused to answer any questions at that time, he put up no resistance when asked to accompany us. Bethany Hamer proved to be more of a challenge. When PC Cleary first knocked on the door to her shop, he was initially prevented from entering the building, with Miss Hamer claiming he had no business there as the shop had been closed for over 2 hours. It was only with his persistent knocking that the florist eventually agreed to let him in. In spite of her acerbic protests, he then began a thorough search of the house. PC Melrose and I, meanwhile, led James Hottie to the back door of the florist's shop. Finding it unlocked, we entered the glass-roofed conservatory and were able to make our way through to the central section of the house. As we approached the main stairwell, PC Cleary was descending with an irate Miss Hamer following close behind. She froze when she saw the 3 of us. PC Cleary then said that he had seen nothing out of the ordinary during his search of the upper and lower floors of the house. It was then that I remembered something the waitress at the Swan had told me about the history of the shop, specifically that it had once been a chemist's with a full laboratory in the cellar. I told Miss Hamer I knew of the room and asked how we could gain access to it. With some disgruntlement, she explained that she did not use the space anymore, and it now served only as a storeroom for some of Mr. Hottie's tools. The revelation was clearly not welcomed by the man himself, who shot an angry glare at the florist and set his jaw hard. After pressing the matter further, Miss Hamer asked Hottie to lead us into his storeroom. Beneath a sizable rug in the room, he revealed a trapdoor and stairway into what looked like a large and well-lit room below. I see. She's renting him the room? Is that what's happening? I descended the stairs with some apprehension, unsure as to what I might find, but to my surprise, all of the lamps in the room were already on. The first section of the cellar looked to contain items from the laboratory of the earlier chemist's shop. Along the far wall were shelves on which sat numerous colored bottles and jars. Most of these were thickly covered with cobwebs and dust, although 2 blue bottles on one shelf looked distinctly clean. They were labeled for laudanum. This is the soporific drug to put you to sleep. So our theory was right about drugging the kids. The next section of the cellar was full of woodworking benches and carpentry tools, all of which had been placed methodically on hooks and pegs along the walls. A couple of half-completed packing crates sat to one side, like some of those I had seen earlier in Hottie's yard. Beyond this, there were 2 sawhorses and a neat stack of timber planks. It was only when I had walked beyond these that I realized there was a small door on the left at the end of the space. Opening the door slowly and with some caution, I could already see that this room was also lit, but I was not prepared for the sight that greeted me. Along the far wall of this much smaller chamber was some filthy-looking bedding. 2 young boys, each no older than 8 or 9 years in age, lay on the beds. Both wore large white shirts and black trousers, but had no shoes or socks on their feet. They looked towards me with evident surprise, and the smaller of the 2 immediately began to sob quietly as if some misfortune were about to befall the pair. Beyond this, neither boy seemed willing or able to communicate. They're all deaf or dumb. That's how they're getting these kids to work, or they're stealing them from a home for handicapped kids. I smiled, did my best to quell any fears they might have, while Hottie attempted to manage the situation. He explained that the boys were merely lodging in the cellar temporarily, while Miss Hamer prepared a proper bedroom for them in an attic room of the shop. We did not find any other children. There were no further clues as to the whereabouts of the auburn-haired girl. When questioned, Bethany Hamer was adamant that she had never taken in a girl matching that description, and insisted that the boys were simply Mr. Hottie's new staff. The man himself looked to be visibly agitated by her assertion, but agreed when asked if this was the case. In questioning the boys along similar lines, P.C. Melrose drew a blank, and the youngsters continued to remain silent while looking distinctly upset by the commotion. Miss Hamer chastised us for the blunt questioning, adding that the hard-working boys needed their sleep and should be left in peace, the hard-working boys. I suppose I now better understand her reputation, though in her defense the children were verifiably upset. I was not sure what to make of all this, and still wondered if one of the boys might be our missing Edward. I explained briefly that we had been told by Mr. and Mrs. Goulding, mentioning the threatening note they'd found as well. But having listened to my account, both Hottie and Hamer were adamant that neither of the boys stood before us had ever been to the forge. On top of this, neither boy showed a strong reaction to what I had recounted, so I felt obliged to let the matter rest. Our subsequent search also revealed some paperwork which we could not readily explain. Amongst Miss Hamer's accounts and cash books, we discovered 7 similar invoices, each made out for the sum of £60, and all marked as having been paid within the past year. The wording of each read, "For safe transportation as previously agreed." Miss Hamer first steadfastly refused to explain these transactions. However, when pushed by P.C. Melrose, she admitted that she had begrudgingly undertaken the administration of someone else's paperwork. With further prompting, she then revealed that the invoices related to Mr. Hottie's carting business, the details of which would have to come from him, as it had been a rapidly growing enterprise as of late. The disclosure brought an immediate, lively reaction from Hottie, who began to utter a torrent of expletives until finally removing himself from the room. PC clearly urged him to calm down, and in light of the drama, PC Melrose announced that further questioning would be required. When he suggested that this was best done at the police station, it was Bethany Hamer who then became agitated, stressing that the two boys could not be left on their own. Melrose refused to listen to further protests, stating that the boys could wait for them at his own house, where Mr. and Mrs. Melrose can find them some clean clothes and boots to change into. Shortly after that, we all made our way to the police station. PC Melrose has continued the questioning, and I've agreed to visit the station first thing tomorrow to learn of any fresh developments. So that is how things stand at the present time. At the moment, I cannot readily see how any of this fits together. But the least I can do is ensure these boys are being justly treated by their new employer. Awaiting your response, Watson. All right, so it seems like, it feels like our theory is pretty sound here, mostly confirmed. For sure, some of the kids are being given to grieving families by Miss Hamer. That's part of what's happening here. We got an illegal adoption agency. Miss Hamer is getting £60 per kid. But I think there's two possibilities. Either there is also a mine where the kids are working, or Hottie has a larger operation shipping kids all over, and Miss Hamer is just one franchise. No, I think we still think these kids are being used for whatever. Half of them are being used for illegal operations, and half of them are being sold in illegal adoptions. Or does the channel think the mine thing was all a ruse? I mean, not a ruse, but misunderstanding, that it's all about child adoptions. We were told that Miss Hamer doesn't care for people or kids, and yet she gets very close to the grieving mothers. So clearly she is running this adoption. And the barefoot kids make sense now. This is how you keep kids from running away. You don't give them shoes. Rob says, why so many crates? There are like 70 of them in there. It can't be just for flowers. Marco says, now it seems less likely that the mine is involved. Okay, let's remember the piece of evidence we have about these 70 crates. There's huge amounts of crates. You can't, and our woman here has got a receipt for a couple kids over the last year, right? Let me just file these in. So this woman is not securing homes for 70 kids. So other people are getting these kids. And they're all coming from the same place. I think that's the important thing. So I still think the mine is our strongest option. That there's two businesses happening, the mines and the adoption. So what I wanted to show here is, okay, so the auburn hair girl, she was put up for adoption. So the people who stay with Hamer, the girls are going up for adoption at least. All right. Then, though, we've got 70 kids, right? 70 crates. 4 coffins, clearly not coffins. 2 carts we found, right? The hearse was a third of this side. So the hearse is what was used to pick up the boy and rescue him, although we still don't know how he heard someone at the door. But okay, I guess we have learned that the kids are very scared of these two. they must be punished very severely. So maybe if someone came to the door and he was awake and he saw him, he was scared of getting punished, so he opened the door for his abductor. Now, here's what I wanted to look at. Two piles of crates. Some which are going to Miss Hamer, her flowers on the left. The heavier boxes on the right. All had delivery labels to the carpenter. So he's got 70 crates that are being delivered from this one place in London to our guy here. So this guy is receiving huge numbers of deliveries of kids. Close to 70. That's just so many carts. He's obviously running some big operation here. And then at the bottom of this room are half completed packing crates. So they're either opening them up or constructing them here. And then there's two boys that are living with her, but only two boys. Maybe is it? I guess the part we're struggling with is why there are so many crates. It doesn't feel like you could... It doesn't feel like you'd have that many kids that you'd need, right? And then there's 70 crates, all but a handful had delivery labels with the same Shoreditch addresses. So they're all coming from the same place in London, 70 of them. And they're all coming here. Some of them have flowers. Two distinct piles, those containing Miss Hamer's flowers on the left, the heavier on the right. And they're going every week. That's the only thing that's really throwing me at the moment, is how there are so many. If it was once a month, then you'd just say, okay, she's placing these illegal adoptions once a month, but she's only got receipts for a handful of them. So the adoptions are rare. The adoptions are the rare side business, and it's really Hottie doing brisk business of kids at a much more frequent rate. We weren't told how many of the... Why wouldn't you just reuse the carts? Why would you need 70? The boxes. Why would you need 70 boxes? Not for kids, right? We only saw a couple of holes, so maybe something else is being transported back and forth. We're told the empty boxes go into London, and then they come out. Edwards is still missing. He could be dead for all we know. Police inspection did not reveal any mine. That's true, but Rob says the mine entrance could be hidden or a tunnel entrance. This is what, yeah, I like that theory that it's hidden. Joe J says maybe it's charcoal? Why not reuse the crates? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. Why not reuse the crates? Why do you have 70 crates? Why do you have 70 crates? And what if it's not kids? It's too many kids. It's too many kids disappearing. Even if they were working the mines, they wouldn't be dying at a clip every week. It's not necessarily true that it's all filled with kids. Hmm. 70 crates. Why are there so many crates? He's just building crate after crate. Is it possible that I mean this is a crazy idea, but this is a bit of a crazy idea, but I think logically it makes more sense. If they've got 70 heavy duty crates, does it not make sense? By the way, no mention that there are holes in them. Does it not make sense that what's happening here is child labor to build crates? That this is a crate sales operation? An illegal crate building operation? Crate building with child labor? Isn't that more logical? That he's got a bunch of kids that he's brought in to build crates. And that's what this business is, building crates? Illegal crates? I mean, 70 crates, you got to be selling crates, right? It just doesn't seem like much of a crime. But I suppose if you're mining some mineral that's in bulk, maybe you ship it out with in crates. Just doesn't seem like you need 70 crates unless you're in the crate making business. Rob points out that they all have return address they're all addressed back and forth to this London place. They're going back and forth to London. Sometimes it delivers a kid that gets illegally sold. But if you're going back and forth every week with a cart full of crates, then you shouldn't need 70 crates. This is either going to be a very clever little twist about why they needed so many crates, or it's not going to be explained to us properly. Why would you need 70 crates? The crates aren't dirty. There's no sign that they've been used to. Is it possible that they're building up the supply of crates because they're eventually going to be needed to ship out all the coal that they're finding? Delivery labels attached to them. Is it possible they're just building up these crates for a big shipment? They're going back and forth. I really don't understand that. Maybe maybe a better way to understand it is that this that the place in Shoreditch, London, is in the business of shipping children all over, providing illegal children everywhere, including labor. And they need carts, and they're hiring this carpenter to produce carts for them. I mean, produce, not carts, boxes, crates for them. And so that, what if it's the case that every week, 10 crates go to London and then 5 come back with flowers? So the carpenter is delivering extra crates that stay in London every week. And only a couple come back with flowers. Not sure why you couldn't get them locally built in London, though. But it would make sense, right? That if you have 70 crates, the plan is to deliver them and not get them back. Maybe we're taking too literally the idea that they're moving back and forth between weekly from London to Lawton. Maybe 15 go to London every week and 5 come back. Hmm. That's so many. Does everyone agree about the label on the 2 blue bottles with laud? Is the laudanum the drug to drug the kids? And then here, these kids are clearly deaf and or mute, so that's why they're not complaining. Maybe one of them is Edward, we don't know. I don't really know how to explain the oversized shirts and undersized trousers. Is that a clue? It's hard to see. It's very, you kidnap someone, you don't give them shoes, they can't run away. I see that. Although if they're, any sign here that they're working in a mine? Not really. Filthy looking bedding. Only 2 kids. Clearly there's an illegal adoption thing. Could it all be illegal adoption? I just don't see how. It feels like Mr. Hottie and Miss Hamer have separate illegal businesses going on. The boys were simply Mr. Hottie's new staff. She says they're tired, they work hard. It does feel like they're doing the work, but maybe they're doing the work of... I felt like digging in the mine. But a rapidly growing enterprise. Maybe he's using the kids to build carts and I mean, it's crazy as it sounds. That's the most logical, that that they are using the kids to build crates, and it's a crate selling business. They're shipping the crates to London, and then every week some come back with flowers and occasionally a kid. And that there's no mine. It's just the kids building crates for a crate selling business. That's the only thing that really makes sense. And then all the nails are being used to build new crates. We just got thrown by the fact that every week the crates go in and the crates come back. It's because it's not that they're all going in and out. It's that half of them every week, 15 go into London, 5 come back with flowers, occasionally a kid for labor, and a kid to sell for an illegal adoption. They don't need shoes because they're not working in a mine. They're working downstairs in this room building crates. That's what the half-built crates. When we read that, I was taking it less literally, like maybe they could be disassembled crates, but let's see. A couple of half-completed packing crates sat to one side. 2 sawhorses and a neat stack of timber planks. Okay, so I needed to spend more, I needed to take this more seriously. They are building crates here. They are building crates here. I just read this as sort of Watson misinterpreting what he was seeing. But clearly here, they're building crates. Okay. He's got a growing business building crates with cheap labor. Not sure why you couldn't just do that in London with child labor, though. Not sure why you wouldn't, why you need to drug them either. Let's see. Crate manufacturing room was in the basement where the kids slept. Maybe they're just used as cheap labor. Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Melissa says, I don't suppose the laudanum could be the business. They could be packing that up and creating it around. There was an epidemic of laudanum addiction back then. I don't think you need a large manufacturing operation to make that much of it. There's no sign that they're making it here. Just a couple jars of it. I think the crate selling business, as pedestrian as it sounds, seems the most logical. And that maybe the kids occasionally run away, then you need a new worker. And maybe the muffled sounds that we took to be work in a mine was just operation of kids in this room far away. I mean, if you were selling cheap crates, you could sell 20 a week and need some real child labor to produce that many. There's no clear sign that a huge number of kids are moving back and forth. So I think it makes sense. We've got a child labor operation here. I'm not sure why you couldn't just, if you're not doing a mine, I'm not sure why you couldn't just hire child labor, but maybe it's not as legal as we think. Chat says, why build the crates underground and not in Hottie's workshop? Because it's gotta be illegal. And the Rob says, so the kids can't escape. So Miss Hamer is running illegal adoptions as a side business, and Hamer is using the kids for child labor. And he's selling crates. It could work. It's a shame because the mind theory was explaining why he wouldn't want deaf and dumb kids, but maybe the answer is simply that their deaf and dumb kids, orphans, are in bigger supply wherever they're getting them from London. And then this theory would be our new theory would be that the kids are very rarely actually being transported, just when they need a new one, when they escape or something. I'm not 100% on it. All right, so we're going to end this here, but there will be continued discussion in the Discord if you have some thoughts afterwards to add, or you can add it as comments to this video. Next week, we will read the solution. We'll see how close we were, see if we missed anything, and see if the solution makes us happy or unhappy. Sounds like there's some grumbling in the chat. If this is all about an illegal crate building operation, it sounds like we're going to have some disgruntled customers of this channel. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. I'm not sure when we'll have the next stream. Probably we'll do something this week, play a game. If you have an idea for a game you want to play, you can stop by the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel. There's a link on this YouTube page somewhere, or our Discord. Let me know what game you'd like to join us for this coming week. I'll see you then.